Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Ngalo J. I hope each and every one of you is feeling great today. In this video, I shall be sharing the experience that me and my family had during our visa interview, and the focus shall be on the questions that were asked by the consular officer. Okay, yes. So but before then, on the day of the interview, we got to the embassy like 2 hours before the time, and we did the first check that was outside, and then we went inside where we made the second check. And it's at that level that they confirmed that actually you have an appointment that day. And then anything that does not concern the DV lottery, like supporting documents or money that you're going to use, you have to leave it out, like your watches, I don't know, your handbag, any kind of miscellaneous, your keys, everything, you have to keep it somewhere safe, right? And then they gave us folders. On the folder there was a number, which was our number. They said they will be calling us using that number, and inside which we classified our documents. We separated the photocopies from the originals. It was there. And then we passed through the metal detector, right? And then now we entered inside. So when we got into that's the inside of the embassy, we are not yet in the building where the interview is taking place, but we are like in the yard, and there is a shelter that has been built there, well constructed, with seats where you can sit. So that was where we were asked to sit and wait for our numbers to be called. So we waited there for more than 2 hours, and finally my number was called. I and my family, we went inside, and a lady, we had to also sign, like it's an attendance sheet that you sign that, okay, I was there. Then a lady called us at a window. She asked my name, I gave her, and then she asked me if I came with everybody, and I said yes. So she asked for the documents, which I gave her, plus the supporting documents, everything. And then she asked us to go and pay the visa fee, which we did. And when we came back to her to give her the receipt, she said, okay, we should wait, that they were going to call us, and that it could take about 30 minutes. So, but actually, guys, it took more than 1 hour for them to call us when she took our documents behind, because there's it's like a screen, like a division, right? So you can see them on the other side inside where they are working. And then those who have come for the interviews, they are this way. So we waited for more than 1 hour, like I said, and finally the consular officer came. He was a white guy. He called my number still, and we went, and he started by apologizing for making us wait too long. And then he asked me to take an oath, to raise, I'm sure it was the left hand, and then to take an oath, which I did. And then he started by asking for our names. Everybody had to say their names. And he asked us, between me and my husband, which language do we prefer that he should use for our interview? Because I am English speaking and my husband is French speaking. So he wanted to know who understands the other language better. And I told him that I understand French better than my husband understands English. He said, okay. But during our interview, most of the questions were in French, because my husband received some questions, I received some, and some were directed to the two of us. Okay, so but the majority of the questions were in French. So he started by asking my first son how old he was, and my son answered him brilliantly, correctly, I wanted to say. And then he asked us, how long have we been together? And I gave him the number of years that we had been together. And he also asked us, where did we meet? And we told him that we met in the university. And he said, so my husband was the professor while I was the student. Is that right? And the two of us smiled and said no, that the two of us were students at the time. Then he looked at one of our pictures that we had brought in the album. He pointed at the picture and he asked us which year we took that picture. It was like more than 10 years before that time. So I gave him the year because I knew the year. So I just told him the year. And then he asked us, when did we get married? And I told him the year, the exact dates, the day, the month, and the year that we got married. And he said, oh, so you guys had all your children after you were married? And we said no, because it was not true. We had our first son. It was after our marriage that we had the two others. So that's what we told him. He said, okay. And he said, but why did we have a child when we were not yet married? It was an embarrassing question, but we had to answer anyway. And I just told him, well, it was our decision at that time. And he asked my husband, when did you do the toqué porte? So he spoke in French, like, vous avez fait le toqué porte. Quand est-ce que vous avez fait la toqué porte? And my husband could not really remember, so I just bumped in and I gave him the dates. And then he said, in our marriage pictures, he realized that our marriage was simple and there were not many people. We did not make a big party. Why was that so? We told him that it's because at that time we were still students, we were not working, that's why. And he said, so we are going to organize a church party, a church wedding when we get to the United States, right? And we said, no, we don't know yet. We don't know whether we'll do it there or we'll come back and do it in Cameroon. For now, we don't know. That's what we just told him, that for now, we don't know. And then he asked us that he turned to me and asked me that beside these three children, do I have any other child or children? And I said no, but I'm expecting. So at that time I was heavily pregnant, so I was touching my tummy and answering. And he looked at me and smiled, and he turned to my husband and asked him that besides these three children, do you have any other child or children? My husband said no, and my husband pointed at me or at my tummy, also saying that no, but he's also expecting a child. And he looked at us and smiled. And then he asked me, are your parents still living? I said, my mother is still living, but my father is of late. And he turned to my husband and asked him, what about you? My husband said his mother is still living, but his father is of late. He said, okay. Then he turned to me and asked me, what do you do for a living? I told him I was a teacher. And he said, where do I teach? That's which level do I teach? I told him that I was teaching in a secondary school. I teach in secondary schools. And he asked me that where did I do my training to become a teacher? I told him the name of the university where I did my training to become a teacher. And then he said, so it was a vocational training, right? And to me, it was not a vocational training. So I told him that no, it was not a vocational training because I was trained in a university. And he said, but you were trained to become a teacher. I said yes. And he said, that is a vocational training. In my mind, I just said, okay, oh, if you said so. Then he turned to my husband and asked him where he obtained his highest degree. My husband gave him, said it was in France. And he asked my husband that how did he manage to get his police certificate from France? And my husband explained to him that he applied online. Then he said, was it very difficult to obtain your police certificate? My husband said no, that it took him just about 24 hours or 48 hours, like that. I've forgotten exactly which one. And he said, wow, that was fast. My husband said yes. And then he asked the two of us that our salaries combined together, how much do we earn every month? And we gave him the answer. And then he said, okay, so we have been to the United States before, right? We said, I said no, I've never been to the United States. And my husband said yes, that he has been to the United States before. And then he now said, okay, I understand. He was looking at my husband and saying, so you have been to the United States before? Then he turned to me and said, you have never been to the United States before, but you have families in the United States. I said, that's correct. And he's asked, are you guys going to live with your family? And we said yes. And then he said, have you already gotten found jobs in the United States? We said, not yet. We have not yet applied. He said, that will be no trouble because you guys are highly qualified. And we said, thank you. And then he asked my husband, when are you traveling next? My husband told him that he did not have any travel plans in view. And he said, all right, okay, because I'm going to give back your passport. To me, everything looks good, everything is okay, but I cannot make a decision because I don't have your medical report. So I'm going to give you a refusal letter. And then when the results come, that is when he was going to make a decision. So at that point, he sent back our passports and our other documents. And then he asked us if we had any question. So I said yes, I had a question, because I asked him that, okay, what if we have the visa, all of us here? What am I going to do with my baby? Because I'm going to have my baby here in Cameroon before traveling. So he jokingly said that he was not very intelligent to answer that question, that he was going to call someone more intelligent than him to do so. So he went to the back and then called for one of his colleagues, who was a black lady. They came together, and then he told her that we had some questions that she's going to answer. And and before he left, he said in French, "Je vous souhaite bon voyage." So that means I wish you safe journey. And we said thank you. And in my mind, I was like, look at me, this man, I don't even have a visa, and you're wishing me safe journey. All right. So with the lady now, I asked her the question again, and then she explained in French and in English that, okay, immediately you give birth to the baby, you have to make all his own documents, gather everything ready. Then you take an appointment online on our website, and then you bring the baby for his own interview. So if it happens before the 30th of September, yes. But if it happens after, you still contact us and we shall know what to do. So at that point, that was the end of the day and we left. So guys, those are the questions that we had. So from the question, what I want to draw your attention is the fact that, number one, it's not every affirmative statement that he makes that you have to accept, right? For example, when he said, my husband was a professor and I was a student, it was not correct. So that's why we said no. So when at times they may make such affirmative statements, right? And because at times we are so stressed or we just want to answer it to be fast. We just keep saying yes, yes, yes. Meanwhile, it's not correct. And if you do that, that may play against you instead, right? So anything that you think that is not correct, you need to address it. All right? Yes. But you don't need to go into an argument with him. For example, when he said, My teacher's training was a vocational training, because normally in Cameroon we don't consider it as a vocational training, right? So that's why I said no. But maybe in the US system they consider it as a vocational training. So I said, okay, if that's what it is, then it is. So, and that was it. So that is it. And for the couples, if one person cannot answer the question, another person can always take over. Because, for example, he directed a question to my husband that when did he do the toke pot? All right, please. I'm sorry I did not explain this one before because I did not want to break up the question. So toke pot is like introduction or knock door. When a man is a man is with a woman and then he wants to marry her, the day that the man and his family members go to the woman's family, we call that ceremony in Cameroon toke pot, right? That's for the French-speaking people. For the English-speaking people, we call it knock door. So it's like they are going to knock on the door of the girl that, okay, we are here and we want to take your daughter. And that is the exact expression that he used. He used it as if the way that we use it in Cameroon, right? We were so surprised. And my husband had forgotten the date, so I just quickly had to intervene to answer, and it was okay. So it doesn't mean when you're in a group you can try to answer, but it should not be recurrent. It should not be all the time, because that was the only question that my husband was doubting the exact dates to give, and I had to come in to help out. But for the other questions, he answered. So that's why it's very, very important to practice and practice and practice well before the date of your interview. So you see that the questions too, they are very normal and ordinary questions. So there is nothing to worry about. You just practice and be natural and be clear, and you are good to go. And the Lord that we serve is going to crown all your efforts with success. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in another video. Remember,